Welcome in, cadets. Today we are going to be talking about free agency, all the players that have been moving. We had a couple trades. We had some crazy contracts handed out. So today's episode, we're going to just be talking about landing spots for these players, their fantasy outputs for the 2024 season. But without further ado, let's jump right into it.
Wilson, wow! What a catch! Touchdown, Jets! That kid's amazing. His team is given time. He wants Jefferson. Climbs the ladder. Oh my goodness! Loading. He's going to heave one for the front right. Pollard drops it in.
So obviously there has been a ton of moves in free agency the past couple of days, but really we're going to stick up on the topic of fantasy relevance, what it means for these players, these offenses, the backups moving into the 2024 fantasy draft season. So let's get into the topic. We're going to start with Derrick Henry, the Baltimore Ravens. What a landing spot for him. It couldn't be any more perfect for fantasy football. Now, Derrick Henry is getting up there in age. I don't think he once was really the player that he was maybe a couple seasons ago, but he still has the juice to remain a fantasy relevance back. And he's already going to an offense that was humming last year. So he does have the touchdown upside, and he could remain a RB1. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was taken in the back of the first round, early second round, due to just the landing spot alone in Baltimore. So that is a perfect dream scenario. And sticking on the topic of running backs, we're going to be talking about Saquon Barkley to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I know on the surface of this move, Saquon Barkley obviously upgrades his situation going from the Giants, who were absolutely miserable offensively, to the Eagles, who did fall apart at the end of the season, but still a way better offense than what was going on with the Giants. So overall, yes, a total upgrade on the surface, but I do have some main concerns here, and these were kind of the same concerns I had going into the 2023 season with DeAndre Swift. Are we going to use this running back as a receiving back out of the backfield? And the answer for DeAndre Swift was yes, they did use him, but not as much as he was probably should have been utilized. And is this player going to have a double-digit touchdown upside? And we did not see that from DeAndre Swift last year. Jalen Hurts took a lot of looks on the goal line. I mean, first and goal, tush push right into the end zone. I believe he had 15 touchdowns last year, Jalen Hurts, which was pretty insane for a quarterback. But these were all, DeAndre Swift down at the one, next play, tush push, Jalen Hurts right into the end zone. So those are my concerns on the surface for Saquon Barkley. But with all that being said, he's going to be a first round pick next year, and rightly so. I do think the concerns I mentioned kind of outweigh his situation. This guy is a all-pro level running back. He might not get the double-digit touchdowns because of Jalen Hurts, but he can definitely make up for it. The 30th ranked Giants offensive line didn't help him very much last year. He's now going to an offensive line that was ranked third last year. So I do have surface concerns about, this move, but overall, Saquon Barkley is a huge winner, and he should have a total rejuvenation for his career moving forward with the Philadelphia Eagles. So moving on along, Gus Edwards signing with the Chargers. Now, ideally, I think this is actually probably one of those sneaky free agent moves that kind of make a lot of sense on both sides here. Gus Edwards goes over to his offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, who worked with him as a Raven. I still think Gus Edwards is a better real-life player than he is a quote-unquote fantasy player. I mean, maybe a couple years ago, he had the chance to be like fantasy relevant, but I think that time has kind of like dwindled a little bit. I do think he could be a nice change of pace back in this offense. I'm not too sure of how much fantasy relevance he's going to have. It really just comes down to one deciding factor here is the Chargers going to take a running back in the 2024 draft? I say yes. I think it's almost 90% sure that that's going to happen. And if that does happen, how is these touches out of this backfield are going to shake out? That is all to be determined. But right now on the surface, Gus Edwards stands atop of that depth chart. So it makes sense on paper. Greg Roman really, he worked with him as a Raven, as I said earlier. So yes, this is an interesting move. Fantasy relevance wise, I'm not too sure how it's going to play out. So we have been talking about a lot of winners when it comes to free agency and landing spots and contracts. But this one was a little interesting to me. Tony Pollard going to the Tennessee Titans. Now, I don't think there's a situation where Tony Pollard is going to see 300 touches this year. We saw Tajay Spears last year as a rookie demand 70 targets. So I thought, Spears might have a chance to be the lead back in Tennessee. He did show some promise, but with the signing of Tony Pollard, this looks like it's going to be a running back committee. Now, we don't know how these touches are going to really shake out, but I can see a world where Spears is more of a third down change of pace back, maybe 40-60, 60 going to Tony Pollard, and possibly Tony Pollard being on the goal line as well. It's really bad for both situations if you really look at it. Tony Pollard, we had so much, we thought he was going to be a league winning back for the Cowboys in 2023. He really was not good for fantasy. In fact, if you took him in the first round or possibly early second round last year, he really hurt you down the stretch. But this is a lose-lose for both players in this situation. Spears doesn't become the lead back, and he doesn't carry that RB1 upside going into 2024. And Tony Pollard doesn't really carry upside, especially in a bottom 5 offense in Tennessee. So this is a very lose-lose situation for both players involved. And then we have Austin Ekeler going to the Washington Commanders. I really don't like this move for either party involved. And I really do feel bad for Austin Ekeler because after those 2 elite seasons he had with the Chargers where he almost scored a gazillion touchdowns in 2 seasons, he really tried to get a bag. The Chargers said no. And, Austin Ekeler being the good man and good soldier he is, he still showed up to training camp. He still played, and he had an absolute miserable season. So he didn't get the money he wanted as a Charger. He goes over to the Commanders, who offer him $11 million for 2 years. So he didn't get the money, and it looks like his career is dwindling. He did not look like the same player he once was. He looked a lot slower. Maybe it was because of injuries. Who knows? But this is not a good landing spot for Austin Ekeler. Fantasy relevance-wise, he is not an elite fantasy running back anymore. He's not an RB1 anymore. In my opinion, he took Antonio Gibson's spot. He's going over where Brian Robinson actually had a good year as a running back. So he's going over to a committee, like I thought all along. He's going to be a change of pace back, and this is probably how his career kind of ends, just kind of fades away. And I really do feel bad for the player here because, he needed a lot more money for scoring 40 touchdowns in 2 seasons with the Chargers, but it didn't happen for Austin Ekeler, and this is not a good landing spot for him either. So let's keep this running back train going. DeAndre Swift to the Chicago Bears. Now, I actually really do love this move for the Bears and DeAndre Swift in general here. He got himself a little bag, rightfully so. He's going over to a team that is going to be entirely different from what we saw in 2023. It looks more and more likely that we are not going to be seeing Justin Fields as a QB moving forward. Caleb Williams will be drafted with the number 1 overall pick to the Chicago Bears. And also, they do have another top 10 pick that they're probably most likely going to use for an offensive lineman or a wide receiver to play opposite of DJ Moore. So all those things factor in. This offense is going to be way better than it was in 2023. And I do think DeAndre Swift doesn't have a lot of people challenging him for touches out of this running back backfield. Obviously, there are going to be players that, like Herbert that mix into the mix and take a few touches here and there. But DeAndre Swift should be the main vocal point. And most of all, there's not going to be a Jalen Hurts stealing 15 touchdowns in a season away from him on the goal line. So I do like DeAndre Swift moving forward. I actually believe he has more upside than he had with the Eagles as a Chicago Bear in 2024. So he could be a sneaky, I would say, round 4, round 5 in your 2024 fantasy draft. So keep an eye on DeAndre Swift. Now let's give some love to the quarterback position. The running backs got a lot of love early on. And let's talk about Russell Wilson going to the Steelers on a veteran minimum contract here. Now, I'm not sure if everyone really follows contract details. The Broncos are going to be paying him $39 million in 2024. I believe he's only getting $4 million as a Steeler. And that's kind of like a stick 'em from Russell Wilson, just kind of giving the Broncos that. But contracts aside, Wilson going over to the Steelers, the first thing that goes to my mind is George Pickens. George Pickens is finally going to get the opportunity to excel in this offense. Kenny Pickett was absolutely miserable for the Steelers the past 2 seasons. 13 touchdown passes and 2 seasons as a Steeler. I believe Russell Wilson could do that in 5 games. So this is a team that's been very heavy on their defense, relied on their defense to win them games. Maybe in 2024, that can change a little bit more with a veteran presence like Russell Wilson behind center. And to kind of mix this up, Dante Johnson, we just got news yesterday that he's going to be a Carolina Panther. He's going to be going over there as in a trade. So more on George Pickens. That suddenly late round pick that could possibly be a sleeper. Yeah, he's going to be shooting up draft boards, and I don't know exactly where he will land when it comes August and it's time to draft, but I think we could see him as early as the 4th round, maybe even earlier than that. I feel like that's a lot. I wanted to kind of get him as a sleeper. I don't think he's going to be slept on. Again, Russell Wilson excels at throwing a deep ball. George Pickens excels at winning down the field. This could be a match made in heaven. I love this move in real life for the Steelers. I also love this move for fantasy. And speaking of real life, let's talk Atlanta Falcons signing Kirk Cousins off an Achilles tear to a $190 million deal for 4 years. The money is insane. I didn't expect this type of money, especially a guy that just got off a major injury and at his age. But listen, the Falcons needed a quarterback. This move makes Drake London suddenly so intriguing for fantasy football in 2024. I am over the moon right now. Kyle Pitts, oh my God, we might actually see him be a top 3 tight end in 2024. I mean, that's the upside these guys possess when you actually have somebody who can get them the ball. Now, all that aside, Kirk Cousins is 35 years old. He just came off of a major Achilles injury. So we don't know if we're getting the same Kirk Cousins. But again, it couldn't get any worse than Desmond Ridder last year. So this is an upgrade. Drake London will be shooting up draft boards. He will be at least a 2nd-round pick. In my eyes, at least a mid-2nd round pick. Kyle Pitts, the hype's coming. This was a generational talent that really hasn't panned out the last couple seasons. He hasn't been getting any targets. Arthur Smith is gone. Good riddance. I can't wait to see what this Falcons offense looks like in 2024. And Kirk Cousins should really utilize these 2 guys as premier options in the passing game. Now let's talk about another Tennessee tight end signing, Calvin Ridley. Yes, Calvin Ridley is the 2nd most guaranteed money wide receiver in the NFL, only behind Tyreek Hill. He's got $50 million guaranteed. I don't understand the money. I don't understand the tight ends. I don't understand what's going on. He's a 29-year-old wide receiver. This is the same team that didn't want to pay A.J. Brown $100 million at age 24, but went out and just spent $92 million for Calvin Ridley at age 29. I don't understand the money, but all that aside, this is great news for Calvin Ridley dynasty owners. We thought his career might be kind of taking a backseat. This money is really saying he's a wide receiver 1 in 2024. Mayo Man, aka Will Levis, I don't know how good he is, but he is going to have a Calvin Ridley and D Hop going into 2024. Now, obviously, these are older players. They are not the same players that were elite talents 3-4 years ago, but these are still guys that can get after the ball and do good things. So the money is outstanding for Calvin Ridley. I did not expect him to get a bag like this. It is great for Dynasty. It's not somebody I'm particularly going to be drafting in 2024 when we talk about redraft leagues, but the money does indicate that he will be a wide receiver one in this offense that does not have Derrick Henry anymore. So they're going to be throwing this ball all over the place. So it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. That is going to wrap up our free agency video. Guys, I know I left some guys out, like Dante Johnson going over to the Carolina, the Vikings signing Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs being signed by the Packers. I just really wanted to highlight some of the premier names, the things that will be changing when it comes draft season when we're in August. So like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you love fantasy football, and we will see you in the next video.